What is not the flex that people think it is? Story 1. I have a genius-level IQ. Firstly, no you don't, or you wouldn't be saying it. Secondly, where did you get this from? Because if it's something from the internet, they say everyone is a genius, so you'll brag about it and share it. Thirdly, intelligence is so complicated, any single number is virtually meaningless. There are so many metrics for intelligence that you can be high in some and low in others, come out average and still be an amazing prodigy at one thing, or brilliant at most things but not know which foot to put your shoes on. My eldest brother is constantly talking about his IQ, what he personally estimates to be well above genius level, naturally, and asks others about theirs dismissively. He is in his 80s now, and his life has been a series of escalating failures and deserved comeuppances, so severe he fled the country. But he's convinced that because a personality test flattered him at some point in the past, he's inherently superior to 99% of people and all but unquestionable. I told him once that he'd be so much more impressive if he wasn't so clearly impressed with himself, and he was furious. Truly intelligent people don't have to constantly talk about how intelligent they believe they are. They just do intelligent things and enjoy involved activities and hobbies. That's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. I like this quote. Intelligence is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. It's almost like knowing their IQs actually makes their IQs drop. Story 2. Toxic positivity. It's all centered around pretending that you can control things you can't control. People who believe this stuff come unglued when they have a real tragedy. Sometimes bad things happen to you with no warning, for no reason. There was no way to avoid it, and no way to fix it. It's okay to feel sad and angry about that. Telling people who are struggling that they can just choose to not struggle is a jerk move, and it makes you sound like an idiot. My parents are new age hippies that think thought creates reality and taught me the same. I developed an anxiety disorder because I was always suppressing negative feelings, and I thought I was responsible for everything bad in my life, and just needed to visualize success harder to fix it. I wasn't equipped to do the work to improve my life because it was all supposed to be manifesting from thought. Poverty forced me to realize manifesting thoughts is BS, and it takes hard work to become better. I'm middle-aged and relatively successful, and I'm still dealing with the consequences of this new age belief system. Feeling sad and angry means you have a heart and care about things. Too bad they don't teach emotional intelligence in school. Story 3. Those people who say they've never seen Star Wars or some famous movie franchise. Like, okay, do you want a medal? I think it's somewhat impressive if someone who is all over social media has managed to escape that one big spoiler from that one popular show or movie for a while. That can be impressive, I suppose, but just actively avoiding a popular franchise or something? Rather pointless. Go watch it, you might like it, or you might not, but at least you'll have an opinion worth discussing. Avoidance doesn't tell us anything, it's just an empty phrase. What if people just aren't interested in the franchise and don't care if their opinion is worth discussing or not? I've never seen Game of Thrones, and since I heard the last season was a train wreck, I have no desire to. Do I brag about it? I mean, I tell a humorous anecdote of how I read the first book in the series 20 years ago, then realized the series was unfinished, and decided to wait to read the second book until the series was finished, so I wouldn't have to be constantly waiting for the next book. So in a way, I guess I do brag about not having to read the books, mostly because there's no way on this planet that series will ever be finished. George R.R. Martin is going to die, and all of his notes and half-finished manuscripts will be burned as the final sucks to be you to the fans. Having not watched a popular show or movie is definitely not something to brag about, but life is too short to subject yourself to entertainment you're not interested in because everyone else is doing it. Story 4. A huge percentage of the political activism I see people out participating in is deeply immoral. Some people are out fighting for freedom, which is good, but a scary amount are out proudly trying to control other people's lives, which is bizarre and horrifying to me. Trying to impose your will onto others is not something to brag about. Even the phrase fighting for freedom gets on my nerves. It seems to be the American mindset that everyone wants to take away our freedom, and the only way to maintain it is to be ready to kick some butt. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate people in the military and the work that they do, but when someone says they're defending our freedom, I feel like saying I was not aware my freedom was being threatened in insert random country we're sending people to. Oh, I'm not referring to foreign policy stuff. I'm talking about fighting for freedom in a personal liberty sense. Some people are out pushing for weed legalization or some other actual good cause, and I applaud them. A lot of others, though, are literally out here proudly marching to ban things or some other variation of trying to take rights from others, which is despicable. despicable. Oh yeah, I knew what you meant. The phrasing you used just reminded me of another thing that annoys me. Story 5. I never ask for help, and I just have to figure it out myself. My mother is one of these. Asking for help is for the weak. It's sad and it's hard to break out of being raised like that, but fortunately I have. My mom will complain about how she never sleeps because her brain won't stop thinking of things to worry about. If you point out that it's called anxiety and she could get help with that, she'll tell you that she just needs to figure it out. She once mowed the lawn with a push mower with a cast on her arm because she wouldn't ask my brother to do it for her. How is that a bad thing though? Coming from a person who hates asking for help, isn't figuring out something yourself so much more satisfying than being told how to do something? The trial and error, the frustration, the failure, and then finally success? Think about how the person being asked for help feels when someone comes up to them. It's such a burden. I'd rather not be a burden. I don't know. Not asking for help when needed can cause more problems. It also places the burden of predicting your needs onto the person helping you. Example, a loved one in the hospital recovering from knee replacement won't ask for help, tries to get up and walk to the bathroom alone, falls and causes injuries. The same person at home recovering won't ask for anything, so I have to constantly monitor for any sign of discomfort and guess what is needed to remedy it. Loved one is uncomfortable, hungry, thirsty, change position, medicine wearing off, need the restroom. It's exhausting. This actually did happen to me. Story 6. Which gender suffers more? So many times, someone will be sitting there talking about a certain issue and someone will usually pop in with, okay, yeah, but we suffer more. Like, okay, that's not something to brag about. Why are we gatekeeping struggle and strife? Am I missing something? Are we trying to out-suffer each other? I don't think this is usually bragging. It's either side feeling like the other has failed to see things about which they are aggrieved. Suffering Olympics is mostly just the existential anxiety of not being understood, the sense that there is an unbridgeable gulf between the experiences of one versus another. If you think my experience isn't as bad as yours, it's only because you don't know what you're talking about. It's not really about the worstness competition, but about the knowing. I think the sooner we all just accept that life sucks for everyone in some way or another, the happier we'll all be not focusing on all the ways we can out-suffer each other. Story 7. Modified cars and bikes. I own both. I know you think I'm a jerk, cringe, or want attention to flex on you, but I don't. I don't care what you think. I do what I love, and so do most people who are into cars and bikes. Yes, there are people who do it for attention and to flex. They are looked down on by the petrol heads. Facts. Unless you're going out of your way to be a jerk, like speeding in residential areas or revving in them, then who cares? I just bought a brand new 5.0 and I am 100% getting an exhaust because it will make me happy. Screw everyone else. The best roads are in the middle of nowhere. Fewer cops, more turns, less traffic, and better scenery. Story 8. Being super woke. We all know you're doing it to show everyone how much you care and how it makes you morally superior to everyone else. This is the only original not a flex in this thread. People really think they're unique because they possess empathy for other people and make it their entire personality. There is a difference between being a decent person and being super woke, though. A decent person will have their own opinions and doesn't go out of their way out of spite. They may say some things that could be considered offensive, but are willing to listen and potentially change their opinions about them. These super woke parrot opinions, they're told by the majority of mainstream politicians and mega corporations. Even the word woke is cringe. We should stop using it or trying to be it entirely. Story 9. Patriotism or nationalism. To paraphrase Bill Hicks, your nationality is normally an accident of birth. You're there because your parents had you there. American patriots would be Turkish patriots if they were born in Istanbul, or Chinese patriots if they were born in Beijing. It just goes to show how arbitrary borders are. That's cool and all, but can we do this thing called moving to other countries and not caring about our own? Patriotism isn't a default, it's something you grow into. Moving to other countries isn't nearly as easy as some people think it is. But yes, it's generally good not to put any stock in patriotism. Just ask a German. Story 10. Being deeply religious or spiritual, also being atheist. Atheism is the rejection of a claim that lacks evidence. Perhaps there are a lot of smug atheists, but atheism itself is not looked at as some redeeming quality, even though it should be. You literally hear man of God as a description and are somehow expected to be respectful of that. There are even college degrees in religion. Imagine getting a degree in something that you can't even prove is real. It's like being a doctor of ghosts. What? I don't know who you're arguing with. I just know people who think that being atheist makes them immediately smarter than everyone around them. Also, a degree in religion has nothing to do with proving it, partially because it was never intended to be proven, but also because it's a study of religion and not science. People compare religion and science way too much in the academic world, when they're on two different planes of thinking. Just because a religion has a story to explain the beginning doesn't mean it denounces the theory of evolution, because the study of religion is the study of religion and the study of science is the study of science. Both are essential to understanding ourselves and humanity as a whole. Story 10. Skipping class in college. You are paying for every class, and if you keep skipping for the sake of it, you are wasting money. I've skipped class to have mental health days or sleep in when I've needed it, and that's been fine. Everyone has a right to do that, but there are risks of missing instruction or time. I know people who have to miss classes for medical reasons, but I'm talking about people who skipped a party or sleep in because they partied, or just skip class for the heck of it. I know people who brag all the time about skipping classes. Like, dude, you are wasting your money. You are paying for every class, and college classes aren't cheap. Go! And somehow those people pass when I'm here attending every class I can, even if I feel out of it and I'm struggling with grades. It's not like high school. Classes are money. You are paying for this, and you will fall behind. I once had a professor who had us calculate how much each individual class session cost. This would vary based on tuition and cost per credit, but for me it was a huge motivator to not skip when I calculated exactly how much money I was wasting by ditching a single class. Story 12. Guns for sure. I like guns, but open carry is sad. Whenever I see people open carrying, I just think pathetic loser. It screams idiot to me. I used to conceal carry when I lived in the South. The only thing that open carry says is please kill me first and take my weapon. I'm an idiot. It literally brands them target number 1. A shooter standing behind someone with a large pistol on their hip will take them out first, and now they have 2 guns. So much safer for everyone around you. Great job, good guy with a gun. Story 12. Giving birth with no pain relief, and or it being so easy peasy, and not even painful at all. And if you feel like you're gonna split open and are in agony and shouting, you are just doing it wrong. You need to work with the pain. Girl, you're soon gonna have to work with the pain of my fist in your face. Yeah, my mom is one of those people. She didn't have the very painful common births, and every time we talk about this subject, she says these women are doing it wrong or don't eat healthy food or something like that. You didn't have a painful birth? Congratulations. But slapping it in other women's faces just screams insecurity. Same with those who are genetically gifted to have their bodies back in shape after birth. That's not a flex. You didn't do anything. You just had good genetics, which you had no control or influence over. I went to high school with a girl who said women only think childbirth is scary and painful because society conditions them to think that way. Like, sorry, you're absolutely right, but a 32-hour labor and emergency C-section totally wasn't scary or painful. I just thought it was. I stopped talking to her after that. Story 13. Bragging about being dumb, incompetent, or generally an awful person. People proud that they don't read books, dropped out of school, don't follow instructions, can't drive well, have poor health, don't sleep enough, never drink water, don't exercise, eat junk food, watch reality TV, won't watch anything educational, speed excessively, parents through overwhelming force, let those kids get away with everything, are the neighborhood nuisance, etc., etc. I'm not innocent of this list entirely either, but I'm not proud of those things and work all the time to better myself as much as I can. But these people embrace the worst aspects of our society. I respect the heck out of people who admit they can't drive well. Some people's ceiling on driving ability is below good, and it's far more than those who admit it. Completely agree, but this thread is about people who brag about these things. If someone came up to me and bragged about never using their turn signals, I'd just want to throttle them. Story 14. Basically all the not like other girls and guys. Hate when dudes tell me they're so different from most dudes. I relate more to Vikings. Like, sir, no you don't. You're just the same as everyone else. Enjoy it. I once met a guy in a bar who introduced himself as Jay the Viking. He looked like an extra from Game of Thrones. He drank a bottle of Chardonnay by himself, and he gave an extremely cerebral and learned disquisition on the origins and influences of Scandinavian power metal. He might actually have been a Viking. Everyone else, however, is just posing. Story 15. blaring your bumpin' sound system that costs more than your crappy car that you put it in while you sit parked outside your home for hours on end. Your system ain't that impressive, and neither are you, bro. With all the bass that just sounds like crappy plastic vibrating. Ugh, that's the worst to me. If I'm going down the highway at 75 miles per hour with the windows down and sunroof open, yeah, my volume is cranked to the max because I'm enjoying my vibe, but my Infinity speakers, while loud, also have clarity. It doesn't sound like plastic rattling. There are few public nuisances worse than that one neighbor blasting his crappy music from his crappy beater at 2 a.m. Story 16. We're like family here. We're coworkers who work for an organization that pays us money on a contractual basis. Relationships will always have a limit. It's not family, and if you feel like it is, you might want to protect yourself. I had a job interview 20 years ago where the interviewer used that exact phrase. I was dumb enough that this comment actually swayed me into accepting the job. The company was a small software development company with about 40 people working there. It really seemed like it could be the sort of pleasant job where you do interesting work without the stupid corporate culture. It was the worst job I ever had. Management micromanaged everything. You were never given responsibility for anything. Any little task had to be done exactly by the book and signed off by management. I was hired because they wanted someone who had a fair bit of software development experience. Almost all other employees there were fresh graduates, so they wanted someone who could improve their production processes. Some of their processes were completely brain dead and at least a decade out of date. When during a review I proposed some changes to bring those processes up to date, I had expected the response to be at least an "we'll look into it," or even a "this won't work here because of A, B, and C," or such. Instead, I got verbatim, "Who do you think you are that you can tell us what to do?" Their entire business philosophy was to make the employees as easily replaceable as possible. It showed too. I worked there for 12 months. During that time, the company had a 38% staff turnover. As a fun postscript, years later, I was telling a friend about this crappy job that I had, and he did a Google search on the company. He stumbled across this web forum where someone asked what the company is like to work for because he'd been offered a job. There were hundreds of replies from disgruntled former employees before eventually there were suddenly a few posts saying, "These people are all wrong. It's a great place to work," which subsequently got exposed as posts from management of the company. Story 17. I work in healthcare. People who say my daughter/husband/neighbor's cat 2 doors down is a doctor. I don't give a fuck. Does that mean you've absorbed their medical knowledge and experience through osmosis? I will treat you the same as every other patient, although the type of person who says stuff like this is usually the biggest obstacle to their treatment. I can imagine a lot of healthcare professionals want to say, if they told you that, then they shouldn't be a doctor. The things people will do to not admit someone else is more knowledgeable about something than them. Family doctor here, and yes, I've definitely wanted to say this to people. Someone I know is a doctor and told me to never ever take widely accepted standard of care treatment that they are the ideal candidate to benefit from, or not physiologically implausible outcome, will definitely happen. And then having to try to find a tactful way of saying that this person is wrong, and if they are indeed a doctor, they're also an idiot. Story 18. I haven't read a book since high school. This is not a flex. Not being interested in reading, having issues with it, or having had bad teachers ruining it for you is one thing, but saying it like you're proud of it tells me a lot about the type of person that you are. None of it is good. I was about to say this. Why even brag about something like that? Anti-intellectualism is a huge turnoff. I wouldn't equate not reading books with anti-intellectualism. It's not like most people who read are reading intellectual books. They don't have to be intellectual books. Reading in general improves cognitive performance and helps with language processing. People who read have a better vocabulary and communicate more effectively. Bragging about not reading is essentially bragging about limiting your CPU speed. Story 19. How little you slept last night. That sounds more like a complaint than a flex. Oh, you must have never run into one of those one-upper type people. The type that when you say you only had 4 hours of sleep, they'll go, "Only? I wish I could sleep that long. My dog/kid/spouse keeps me up late and I only slept for 2 hours. You don't really know what tired is. I would kill for 4 hours of sleep." It's so annoying because both our situations suck. There is no need to get into a contest of who's having a crappier day. Story 20. Your obsessive-compulsive music collection or opinions about playing a musical instrument. I've played an instrument for more than 20 years. One day in my late 20s, I realized being that guy at the party was extremely vapid, shallow, and nauseating. I actually hate musicians, and usually keep my musical opinions or stupid pointless rants about playing music to myself. Literally nobody wants to hear it. It's not spectacular, and it doesn't make you good at conversation to just brag about something you're good at or to foist your opinions about music onto other people. It's lame and self-absorbed. If you catch yourself being this person at social gatherings, it's time to have a conversation with yourself about what type of person you want to be. Do you want to be a humble student who is always learning and improving for your own reasons? Or do you want to be an egomaniac about it who's always desperate to make sure everyone around you always knows who you are trying to be and why? Most of the professional musicians I know, while attention-loving, are pretty humble until you ask them to demonstrate their skills. Then it's a free game to flex, and you asked for it. Story 21. Teachers bragging about how some high percentage of the class fails every year. Definitely not something to brag about, but in certain instances, I think it can be okay for professors to warn students about a high failure or dropout rate. The instance I'm thinking of is a university-level degree program where a certain required course is used as a gatekeeper to prevent people from finishing in that major. Like, for instance, I've heard that organic chemistry is a notoriously hard course in a lot of schools that's required for certain degrees. That being said, I don't really understand why programs like that don't just have a separate audition, entrance exam, or interview process for those majors. That's what they do for the arts, as well as for things like law school. If you don't want unqualified people getting a degree, then don't waste their time by making them think they can. That's fine, but most of the time when people are talking about professors like this, it isn't some degree-critical course. It's often either some elective course or gen ed that everybody has to take to move on to things that are actually pertinent to their degree. My experience with a professor that was proud of their dropout/failure rate was in physics. While I'll certainly admit that the course provided a foundation for many of the things I learned and used later in college, later courses provided either a refresh on the material or more insight into how or why you were using it that often left me wondering if that individual professor being a hard ass about it was even worth it. I wasn't any further ahead than students that took the class with more lax professors. Story 22. How big their mortgage is. Dude, you're just bragging about how crippling your debt is. I have a friend who told me their mortgage was $1.3 million. Come to find out, it was actually a $700K mortgage that her husband told me on a separate occasion. Like, why lie, let alone brag about it? I'm assuming it's because of the implication that the bigger your mortgage is, the more money/income you had to begin with. In other words, the fact that someone even qualified for a $1 million mortgage in the first place is, in and of itself, a demonstration of how much money they have. I recently learned that the word mortgage literally means death pledge. A mortgage is an agreement you make with a debtor that they presume will last until your death. Knowing that, I certainly wouldn't brag about having a $1 million death pledge to my name. Story 23. Working 60+ hours a week and the grind mentality. Don't get me wrong, I like OT, especially because all of my OT is double time and I like making the big bucks from time to time. But trying to flex that you work 60+ hours per week and saying that anything less than 60 hours is part-time is just plain stupid. You're working your life away, spending more time away from your family, and it shows just how underpaid you really are. I have older bosses, 60+, that don't call it a grind mentality but more so living at the office. One of them harps on the fact that he is in the office all the time. First one in, last one out. He even came during COVID and was always here. Well, the department he runs has plenty of issues and is a major cause of why we didn't hit all of our company targets last year. So I'm not sure what value he being in the office had all this time. If we can't find a way to do our job effectively in a normal 40-hour work week, then we're doing something wrong or we need to advocate for more people. I really don't understand this mentality. They know they're gonna die, right? Like, this doesn't last forever. What the heck are you putting all this work in for? If you enjoy it, fine. If you're trying to leave a bunch of money for your loved ones, great. But working too much for the sake of working too much? Are you really gonna be happy about that on your deathbed? Story 24. CrossFit. As a nurse that has worked in orthopedic surgery, a lot of our surgical procedures are repairing injuries from CrossFit. Before I really got into weightlifting, I was finding avenues to be more active and losing some weight. I couldn't get into running, so I looked into CrossFit momentarily, followed the big YouTubers to try and get a feel for the culture, and noticed that without fail that every single one of them and pretty much everybody they knew had at one point gotten a serious injury. Not an elevate and put on ice injury, I'm talking surgery and rehab. It felt like a massive red flag, and now that I'm into weightlifting, I understand how much more dangerous CrossFit is than I initially thought. My orthopedic doctor told me he could run his whole practice on CrossFit injuries. Story 25. Bruh, I'm such an alcoholic, I can drink X amount of alcohol. Ugh, that was me in my 20s. I was absolutely a functioning alcoholic, downing a handle a week, plus wine and beer. No wonder I put on 60 pounds. Dropped it all since, thankfully. I used to brag about drinking everyone under the table, and then it kinda dawned on me that I might actually have an addiction problem. I'm so glad that it didn't take a more severe wake-up call like hospitalization for overconsumption or something like that. At least you realized it, man. We all do dumb stuff in our 20s. Our vices take over. A lot of people continue on into their 30s and beyond and never recover. Good for you. Story 26. The I never take a day off types who live at work. How bad does your home life have to be? Working for one of those types is the worst. I'm working under one of those guys now. It's a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. job. I stay late on the occasional day, and this guy regularly pulls 8:30 a.m. to 7+ p.m. days. He complains he doesn't have time to date. I wish he'd loosen up, not be a smartass all the time, and not use his job/career as his personality. It would help him to be more approachable and maybe kinda likable. Story 27. These idiots that ride motorcycles or ATVs super fast and recklessly down city streets, doing wheelies and swerving in and out of traffic. What annoys me is that those guys are never the ones I see getting tickets. It's always the poor dude driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit just trying to get to the grocery store or whatever. NYPD's standard procedure is to not chase them. They used to just write down the plate and impound it from their driveway. Now they learned to remove the plates. It was just too dangerous to try and pull them over if they were not going to stop. So I get the choice, but it's still like, come on, you have to have a better solution than to shrug. Story 28. Proclaiming you're an alpha male. In fact, it makes you look like a complete idiot and everyone hates you. If you have to tell someone that you're an alpha, you're not. Not that having alpha males is a meaningful thing in human society anyway. While alphas aren't a thing, people confuse it with people that are more confident, have a dominant personality, and have a commanding presence. The people that claim to be an alpha are usually just a-holes that think being a jerk to everyone around you somehow makes you dominant. Guys that call themselves alpha males just want to be werewolves so bad. Story 29. When adults brag about high school sports achievements, like that's their whole personality. I think there are levels to this. Sometimes I might bring up what I did in track if I find out the person I'm talking to is doing or did track, just to make conversation. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of something legitimately cool that you did as a kid. But if that touchdown you scored at regionals was the last time you did anything worthwhile, you need to get out of the past and reevaluate yourself. It's nice if it's actually an interesting story. I run most days and seasonally coach 2 local cross-country teams. So many people want to tell me how fast and far they can run and that they were captain of their high school track team, and I truly cannot bring myself to give a single crap. Then there are even worse folks that want to bet and joke about how they could beat me or any of the kids I coach in a race. It's not funny. Story 30. Being proud about being brutally honest when they're just rude. I have a coworker who in my 6 weeks at my new job said in every single conversation that she has no filter and will tell it like it is. Congratulations, you have the maturity of a child and cannot read a room? You have no empathy or manners? Good for you. What is super annoying is that these people do have filters, they just don't think you or I are important enough to use them with. I always want to say, so you have no filter, huh? This means you talk to your grandmother, your doctor, your minister, and your banker in just the same way that you talk to me then? There are certain people they respect enough to address in a polite manner, and many more that they don't. Story 31. Do you know who my dad, mom, or parents are? No one cares. Some teenager said that to my dad after a minor car accident. My dad's reply was, yeah, and I'm calling him up right now so that he can pick you up. I wish I could have bottled up that look of crushing defeat on that little crap's face. This is like saying, do you know who I am? Except lamer because you're not even trying to appeal to your own authority. Story 32. Upmanship. Good grief. People think making someone else look less than them makes them cool. No, it makes you you look insecure. I have a lovely friend who does this. For example, a few years back, I ran my first 10K in a little under an hour. When I told everyone, my friend responded with, "I ran my last 10K in 35 minutes. It wasn't even that hard." Well, no crap, Bethany, you're a professional effing triathlete. I had a Bethany coworker. We nicknamed her Rhonda Oh Yeah, because any accomplishment you had, Rhonda would respond with, "Oh yeah? Well you could take a 10-pound dump and Rhonda Oh Yeah would have taken an 11-pound one. Some people are insufferable. Thanks for watching to the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so yet. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again and see you next time.